What's up everyone, welcome to today's video. Welcome to the Video Game Fight School channel. Thank you very much for tuning in. So we got to see Red Hood today in combat. Actually, we got to see Red Hood and Red Hood in combat, and I think this was quite interesting. So first of all, when I saw it, I had my own thoughts, which I will share with you guys here in this video. But one thing is always fun for me to do, and that's also sharing the thoughts of other people around the community. So I went on the IGN page and I skimmed through about 700 comments. As of the time of recording this video, there are over 800 now. And it was quite interesting to read some community concerns. Some people actually seem to enjoy and like it. Some people said things like, I'm not necessarily certain, while some went all the way to say it felt like Red Hood was swinging like a drunk Irishman. And there are parts of the video where you look and say, man, why is he swinging so hard in a sense when he can just easily punch an enemy in front of him? So I guess these are things that will relate to maybe say combat design, the scenario, the way the entire framework of the game has been made. And at the end of the day, I don't necessarily know where everybody else stands, but I'll tell you where I stand at the end of this video. So I haven't looked through all these comments. There are a few things that have come up regarding this that some I agree with, some I don't necessarily agree with, and some I can see both sides. One of them being that using two Red Hoods to do this showcase kind of broke the immersion for some people. Now, I understand that if you have, say, a Red Hood and a Red Hood, or a Batgirl and a Batgirl, that really does feel kind of strange. It doesn't necessarily hold to this knighthood or knight collaboration that many people would like to see. This was somewhat the fantasy that the developers teased, but then at the same time, it does not limit the character and their co-op players. So in a sense, this mechanic serves the community and allows for you to basically have all the freedom that the developers want you to do. So there's a case for and there's a case for on both sides, and so I say leave it be. If you're playing with one other person that you know and they're maybe a friend of yours, you guys can agree as to what characters you want to use. You can rock, paper, scissors it, or whatever it is you want to do. I don't think that's necessarily going to affect anything because you have direct control over this system and you can make it happen. Where if your guy decides, oh, they want to use Nightwing and it must be Nightwing, you can concede and use Robin, or you can say, all right, whatever, I'm not playing, I'm gonna go play 2K or something else if you're not gonna let me use Nightwing. That's something that both players have control over, so it doesn't necessarily mean much in the grand scheme of things. Another really cool thing too regarding concerns was some people kind of, were in a place where they said it doesn't feel like we're getting a free form of attacking strings with this character. For those of you who saw the Batgirl gameplay that was actually put up on Instagram and Twitter, it seemed like you could connect this character hitting everybody in a sequence and being able to close the gaps that was between the AI, using things like beatdown, using things like, say, some attacks that you can pretty much move over and hit the enemy. And this was a way that kind of created some kind of a fluidity with her combat. In fact, even with Robin has a lot of teleportation type abilities that allows for him to be able to connect freely, while Nightwing has the acrobatics where he can do flips and he can do all kinds of different twists and turns to make his way from one character to another character when there's a great distance between. It didn't necessarily seem like Red Hood had any of that from the gameplay that we saw. So I'm sure a lot of people are probably asking the question, so how are we going to approach combat with this character? So I guess what we would like to see in order to be able to answer that question is to see Red Hood in an individual combat. A lot of the audience for Gotham Knights are single player people who played the superhero games from the single player perspective. Even though most people might say, well, the multiplayer seems to be a good idea and it has some merit to it, I think they also want to see how that character hits, or how their favorite character they're looking forward to is going to interact with the game and how they are going to be in terms of control, and see how that works from their perspective. So I say in this particular case, this is probably where we need to argue for a demo once again, because a demo really will solidify a lot of people's ideas, a lot of people's frame of mind. Because I think if somebody is at the point where they can say, okay, I want to play these two knights, or I actually like these two knights, I think it's a definite buy for them. If they can play three knights, it's a definite pre-order, which most of us were on the three-knight train. Okay, Red Hood, Batgirl, or Nightwing. For me, I'm all Batgirl and Robin, and for Nightwing I don't necessarily know, because I'm not certain about Red Hood right now. I haven't seen him. So this is kind of that place, but still I'm on board, because those two knights already, they seem satisfactory to me with their play style. So what I would like to see in terms of that is maybe we can get a demo and kind of get a feel for how Red Hood is going to play, and then we can know, okay, this is how this character is built. Now, in the past, I've also argued that Red Hood is some sort of a ranged character. They probably have designed him with a lot of ranged abilities in mind, and Jeff Eleanor basically confirmed that today, which is a huge differentiation from this Red Hood, from the Arkham Red Hood that many of us are used to. And then I'm certain nonetheless that if they want him to be this ranged character, then it would be in a place where the player has to basically log into a whole different paradigm to use him in the game, and his brute force type melee acrobatics that we're kind of used to from the comics, and even maybe from the Under the Red Hood animated series, and even from the Arkham games, even though if you say Arkham games these days, it sounds like a swear word around Gotham Knights. I think maybe everyone's just going to have to maybe readapt how they imagine this character in this game. And if you are satisfied or not satisfied with it, it would just be that thing where you either shelve him and play other knights, or you just play him and just, you know, maybe get used to how they've designed him to play. Either way, this is where I think everyone has to make a decision as to how they want to engage Gotham Knights. One other major thing regarding this particular character showcase was a lot of people commented as to how Red Hood's gun always stays in his hand. Now, this is very interesting because in the Arkham games, and I have to be fair to the developers of Warner Brothers Games Montreal, is Red Hood's gun stayed in his hands every time. Everything he did had pretty much his guns attached to his hands, so I don't think that's necessarily a bad design choice. The Red Hood in Arkham Knight is actually one of my favorite Red Hoods to play. I don't think I've played many Red Hoods anyways, but that's actually a very solid design for a character. But overall, when it comes to a melee gun hybrid character, it is definitely not Red Hood overall. And even if there are characters that actually do it way better than Red Hood, and some characters that I don't necessarily play or interact with, there are characters in video games that do the job very well. In fact, one of them is Red Hood himself in Injustice 2. Even though I'm not an Injustice 2 player, I can appreciate how the Red Hood in Injustice 2 was actually very well designed to be able to mix and match his use of his guns and his hands and feet in combat and other gadgets as well. This is a very well done hybrid for the gunplay melee character, especially when it represents the exact same character but a different variation of him. Another character too, and thanks to NetherRealms, who are very good at making their own fighting game imaginations, is Aaron Black from Mortal Kombat. You can see Aaron Black from Mortal Kombat 11 and even MKX, the way that the character actually uses his gun. So this concern of having the character and their gun attached to their hand is somewhat valid, because there are other studios that actually do it in a way where Aaron Black can use both his sidearms and even his rifle in a seamless way in combos and all kinds of different attacks, even ranged attacks. And it makes it seem so smooth because he can retract and actually draw those weapons on the fly to be able to do those moves, and the animations are smooth and seamless. So I see the reason why people may say that. And could it be a big deal to ask that the developers have put this mechanic in the game in Gotham Knights? I don't think it's a big deal. I think they should have at least tried to implement this system with Red Hood. Maybe that would have given a little bit more freedom. And yes, from a game developer perspective, I can understand that that's going to be a very hard design, but it is what it is. Say when Red Hood is doing any melees or whatever it is, you can basically, you know, somehow quickly holster his weapons and then just fight with his hands and his feet. And then whenever you want to do a ranged attack, which is probably tied to a different button, he can quickly retract his weapon. And then as you're firing more and more, he can retract the second sidearm so that it could be maybe a dual wielding. It's a very complex system to do, but a studio the caliber of Warner Brothers Games Montreal is capable of pretty much executing that. But then to add that development aspect on top of all of the four Knights, I think the ambition of Gotham Knights is reached its place of finishing returns. You can only do so much with 4 characters in a full-blown game to make all of them unique, and only have maybe even 6 years of development, because I'm not necessarily convinced that this game has been in development as long as many people think. Warner Brothers Games Montreal went through so many cancellations. Patrick Redding got hired in that studio, actually started in that studio in 2014, and other games have been canceled in that time period. So once you factor all of this with canceled projects that have taken away resources, and then how Gotham Knights in a sense had gone through delays over maybe optimization and all, I think Red Hood is going to be that one character that probably does not satisfy a lot of the fans like the other Knights. And that's just one thing that we're probably seeing right now, and it's good good that we're seeing it before the game comes out. That way many people can make their own decisions as to how they want to engage with the game, if at all they want to engage with the game at any rate. But I'm certain you're probably curious as to what I think about Red Hood and if I'm going to be playing him after this reveal. And the truth is, I think right now Red Hood has actually shifted down among the ranks of the knights that I want to play. Ideally, I've always been a Batgirl fan, number one. That's whom I want to play, and I'm happy with how they've designed her. I'm happy with her gameplay, her abilities, and the way that she fights as a brawler. I thought I was probably going to be playing Robin the last, but in seeing Robin as a weapon character, in many cases, I enjoy weapon characters, especially extended weapon characters. In Mortal Kombat 11, I use Kotal Khan, I use Frost. I don't necessarily use many other characters other than that. And so Robin almost fits that archetype. So he's been moved up to number 2 character that I'm looking forward to playing. And then Red Hood was probably going to be number 3 after the May reveal. But it seemed like the way the character's fundamental design is just that way. He seems somewhat slow. He may seem very powerful with his moves and may deal a lot of damage, but it doesn't necessarily appeal to me. So Nightwing just moved up the ranks in my opinion. And I'm sure that many people probably have these same thoughts. For some people, they saw this Red Hood and they said, wow, I'm going to want to play Red Hood as my main, even from what I've seen. But that's not the case for me. I never really wanted to play him as my main, but he was way up there. But having seen the way he's so different from Barbara and how Barbara is so close to Batman, I think the developers have pretty much given me exactly what it is that I want. A Batman style character that can actually play in their own imagination of a video game. And I think that's satisfactory for me. It's a little painful nonetheless in some sense, because I wanted a lot of the Arkham kind of combat, the free flow that we saw maybe even in Spider-Man and even Middle-earth Shadow of War. That combat system is simple, but that combat system has a lot in its psychology. And I'm sure many people are also wishing that Red Hood could possibly play and flow like that, but the inherent design of Gotham Knights doesn't seem to permit that kind of gameplay. And I respect it. It's a very gutsy move for you to come from under the wings of an established game studio with established mechanics, established way of doing things, to come out with your own grand design is a big deal. I'm sure the critics will be really harsh and probably say things like, oh, they should have done things this way or done things that way. But everyone is going to learn at the end of the day with this experience. But at the end of the day, though, I would love to hear your thoughts about this Red Hood trailer that you saw in the comment section. What do you think, and how would you rate him against, say, the other knights in Gotham Knights? Talk to me, and I'll talk to you guys soon. Peace out.